I'm Lisa Haisha. Welcome to the Legacy Interviews. Today on my couch, I'm with Marianne Williamson. And I've been a huge fan of hers for a decade now. I go and listen to her speak in Los Angeles. She speaks regularly every Monday night about spirituality and A Course in Miracles. And she's brilliant at it. She has helped so many of my friends. She's helped me with my issues, especially around relationships and how to love yourself and be open to opening your heart to others. So if you want to know about that, you need to go see Marianne. So today we are going to uncover who Marianne is, what she does, what drives her. And she's a best-selling author with over 15 books, I believe.
11.
11 books, and she has so much information and so much to share. So welcome, Marianne.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's wonderful being here.
Yes.
Hearing your story.
Oh, thank you. The people I associate with and my clients and my mailing list, everyone said, we would love to hear Marianne Williamson. You have touched so many people.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this is about legacy. Your legacy today is already so strong and so powerful. You've already made such a dent on the consciousness of the world.
Thank you.
And I want to acknowledge that before we even get started in this.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you are the epitome of what this is all about.
Thank you.
So I wanted to know what drives you to help people so much and to explore yourself in the world at such a deep and profound level.
Well, I don't think my deeper yearning is any different than anyone else's. I just feel very fortunate because I have a place to put it. Even when I was a little girl, I had a real thing about God. I was kind of a mystical child, you know. And then I remember when I was in high school, I saw my first astrology book, and I took a class when I was 14 years old in the summer school program, and it said philosophical approaches to the question of God. I remember that. It was in New Hampshire. And I remember when I saw in the booklet, you know, that was the name of a class I could take. Philosophical approaches to the question of God. I was just in heaven. I couldn't even believe such a thing existed. So that was always just my interest. But I had a difficult time. I think the 20s are hard for most people. And growing up, even though I started reading books about religion and philosophy, and I was always interested in East, West, esoteric, traditional. I never saw a big divide there. I mean, I was interested in the traditional religious philosophers, but also out there esoteric occult stuff. It's always just different kinds of candy to me. But I had a difficult time. I couldn't figure out with a lot of it how to apply it to my own life and my own relationships. And then when I was in my 20s, I saw A Course in Miracles and started reading it. The Course doesn't claim to be for everybody, but if it's for you, you know it, I think. And so when I read The Course in Miracles, it was like, got it, because I felt it was like, for me, it was like you go to a cathedral, and there is this huge flight of stairs. And I climbed those stairs, and sometimes my knees were bloody, my elbows. I mean, I tried so hard to get to the top of those stairs. And then there was this door, a big wooden door, and I still couldn't unlock it. And the Course in Miracles gave me the key. And that key, and I'm not saying this hadn't been written anywhere else that I'd read, it's just that I hadn't gotten it. And that was the idea that the key is other people. And I had been one of those people, and many are, where sometimes I would even ignore you because, excuse me, I'm searching for God. I didn't realize there was no searching for God, but through you, through this relationship. And that's the key that the Course gave me. So it was just my own search and my own excitement about it. And then when I first, very early, when I was reading A Course in Miracles, very early, like the first 2 weeks or something, I'd gone over to where it was published in New York. And Judy Scutch, it was their apartment where they were publishing, and she was leaving. And her husband said, well, she's leaving, she's traveling. She was off to the airport because she was flying to Houston, Texas to give a talk about the Course. And I actually was born and raised in Houston. And I remember thinking, wow, you mean people could do that with their lives? That she just goes around talking about A Course in Miracles, like, whoa. And So I just was a passionate student of the course. I still am. And then years later, I started having little groups at my bookstore in Houston, and then 5 years after that, started lecturing in Los Angeles. And then 5 years after that, published my first book. And blah,
How
blah,
did you
blah.
get your
Yada,
first
yada,
book published?
It was a Thursday night in San Francisco. And I was giving a talk, and before the talk I was having dinner with Jerry Jampolsky. Do you know who Jerry Jampolsky is? Jerry Jampolsky was one of the first people with the publishing of the course, but he also wrote the first popular book about it called Love is Letting Go of Fear.
I do know
He's
that
a
book.
real giant.
Yes,
Yeah, he and his wife, Diane Cirencione. Wonderful people. So he and I were having dinner, and he said to me, you should write a book. Now at that point I had been lecturing on the course for 5 years. He said, you should write a book. And I said, well, people have told me that, but I don't feel pregnant with a book. And he said, well, it's all in your tapes. You give these lectures, it's in your tapes. And I said, yeah, but I don't know how to get it out of the tapes onto a page and turn it into a book. And he said, why don't we just join in consciousness? That there is someone out there, right now, you and I joining in consciousness, that there's someone out there who would know how to do that. I said, okay. That was in San Francisco on a Thursday night. 2 days later, on a Saturday morning at my lecture in LA, a gentleman came up to me, said he was a literary agent, and had I ever thought of writing a book? And I said, that's so amazing, and people have told me that, but I've said I don't feel pregnant with a book, and I met Jerry, blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't know if that man ever tried to call me. I never got a call from him. That was pre-voicemail message, I think. I don't know, whatever. I never heard from him. 5 days after that, so exactly 1 week to the night after Jerry Jampolsky and I in San Francisco, I'm in New York, because I used to fly around a lot in those days to talk. And I gave a talk in New York on the course, you know, doing my thing. And I had started lecturing in 1983, and this is 1988 now. And after I talked, there was a line of people waiting to speak to me, and there was one man at the end, and I just had this flash of knowing I had destiny with him. And he introduced himself as a literary agent. Had I thought of writing a book? He said the same thing. I said, but I don't know how to get it out. He said, I'm your man. And he did, Al Lohman. And he, you know, got the woman who would work with me on the proposal and blah, blah, blah. And that's, the book came out. And then I was very, very lucky because Oprah Winfrey read it. And this was before her book club. So she really gave me an extraordinary gift of the kind of exposure that her show could.
Yes.
So that's my
yes,
story.
and then took off from there.
Yeah.
So how did you...
I was already lecturing in Los Angeles and New York, but...
Okay, so almost everyone I know wants to be a speaker, and everyone says, did you hear Marianne? She spoke again. Every single night she speaks, and you barely use notes. How do you become a speaker if you're passionate about something?
Well, I think what has served me in my career is that when I was a student of the course and out there, this professional niche did not exist. So I had no ambition. In those days, you could either become a clergy person. My mother kept saying, your father and I have discussed it, we will send you to rabbinical school. I didn't see that for myself. Or you became an academic. You were a teacher of comparative religion or something, and I didn't see that for myself. I was just a woman who stood up and talked to people about my passion about God and about these books. And like any other teacher, you know, the Russian literature professor is not Dostoevsky, but the Russian literature professor has read Dostoevsky and might help you unpack your own understanding and help foster your own passion for Dostoevsky. And so there was no reason at that time for me to ever think that this would turn into a career. And I think that that was such a blessing that I didn't, when you say everybody wants to be a speaker, creeps me out.
Yeah.
Because that's the last thing, you know, there's a difference between being hungry and being ambitious. And so this whole career niche thing that's formed, I'm glad that I feel blessed by the fact that I wasn't here for that. This was before all that.
So you were just doing your passion and sharing your passion.
And that's what I'm doing today.
Yes.
And whenever I deviate from that, you know, I've never sold as many books as when I didn't even know what bestseller, the phrase bestseller wasn't even on my radar in those days. I wouldn't say I was an idiot savant, but I was innocent by, I was, it's when the, in the beginner's luck is the Zen mind, the beginner's mind.
Yes.
I had a beginner's luck, and then it was a Zen mind. I had nothing, there was no self-will there, because I didn't think there was anything to have self-will for, because this career niche didn't exist.
Yes.
So in my life, and this is principle, this has nothing to do with just my story or just that time in my life. So in my life today, anytime I deviate from that, my good is diminished on every level. And anytime I return to that is when abundance happens. I think you said something earlier, I can't remember. Oh, when you came and you wanted a certain something,
yeah,
what you got back was not the highest level.
Right.
It's when you were empty of all that, and you'd seen what life was really about. And so you weren't buying into all this. And I think also early in my career, because right when I started lecturing here in Los Angeles in 1983 at a place called the Philosophical Research Society. Not long after that, the AIDS epidemic burst onto the scene. And it took a while for the organized religious institutions to work through their own stuff. And it took a while for Western medicine to find anything helpful. And during that time, there was this then young woman over in a corner of Los Angeles and Los Feliz talking about a God who loves you no matter what, who works miracles. So in a very real way, gay men in Los Angeles gave me my career, that love relationship. So the fact that very early in my work doing that, there was an experience of such seriousness and suffering. It's not even that it burned away any falsehood. The falsehood of that kind never had a chance to emerge because it was so real from the beginning. Like when you were talking about having seen the world, seeing what's really happening. So this whole, I want to be this, I want to be that stuff just...
So your whole life was organic. You just were following your passion, and then one thing led to another, led to another, led to another.
And that's not even a was, it's an is.
Yes, yeah, right.
I mean, in the real world, there is no time. The past is only in your mind, the future is only in your mind. So every moment I either reenact that or I don't. And when I do, incredible things happen. I always say, when I practice what I preach, my life really works. The when I do that, it's as true today as it was, 30 years ago.
Yes,
and when I don't, I have limited, the concept. It's really a law, cause and effect. And
it's absolutely true. I feel the same way. Anytime I actually following my own advice or just being in the moment, being present, my life unfolds. Anytime I try to manipulate it, it's
and being present for the right reasons.
Yes, absolutely.
Just to stand in a space of emptiness and how might I serve.
Yes.
And that you can't stand in that and be ambitious for a spiritual career at the same time.
Or say, let me study this person. What is she doing? Because I'm going to start copying her. So many people go to your class going, I just love watching her and how she does it, so I could.
Well, listen, I'm honored by that. I mean,
absolutely,
I do think
because you're a pro. You really touch audiences when you speak, and that is the key to being a good speaker.
And thank you for that. And though there's also something beautiful as you become older, that there are people in generations behind you, and I am at that point in my life where I get to be on some level, if not personally, then at least in a public role, a kind of mentor. And so I'm very pleased to see this kind of younger generation of these young priestesses, Yes. So I'm honored by that. Don't get me wrong. I think that's really kind of beautiful. And everybody speaks from their own generational experience.
Yes. But thank you for sharing that. The key is really for everyone to be the best them they can be.
Yeah.
Not to try to reach out or try to do this, try to do that,
well,
but to almost...
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm sorry.
Embody it. Get to know them, really be in the moment, and what do you have to say, and what's natural for you. You can be inspired by someone, but not...
Well, I hope that one of the things that I am demonstrating that other younger people are picking up is that I don't just start talking. I don't. There is a specific teaching that I have been reading for years, and I teach based on that. And there is such a spiritual dilettantism in the world today that I don't believe particularly serves. A little bit of principle here and a little bit of principle there, and this one's convenient and this one feels good, and that one, oh, it would take too much work on my part, or that one, it would take too much of my having to face things. So if there's anything that my career is demonstrating that would please me to think, it's people knowing that it is more than just getting up and being yourself, that it is studying a particular discipline, reading, studying, working. Nobody's expecting us to be perfect.
Yes.
But I think people are expecting and have a right to expect that we're trying our best to get it right. So I hope that that is something that is reading, and I believe that it is.
Mm-hmm. So you are now teaching about spirituality and relationships, and you have an upcoming seminar for Valentine's Day. Will you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I'd be glad to. You know, A Course in Miracles, I always say A Course in Miracles talks about everything without talking about anything specifically. Mm-hmm. And it says you think you have many different problems, but you really only have one, and that is your separation from God. So we tend to categorize.
Can we back up a little? What is your definition of God when you say separation from God?
I don't think the word God can be defined. I like the way in Alcoholics Anonymous they talk about God as you understand him. The Course in Miracles says this course does not aim to teach the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It aims to remove the barriers that you hold against its coming. The Course is not a religion. There's no religion here. There's no doctrine here. There's no dogma. It's not a belief that is the issue here. It's an experience that's the issue here. I want to experience the peace of God, which I can only have through complete communication given and received and love given and received. So when I say separation, when it says separation from God, it's saying that the only real problem in your life, you really only have one, and that is separation from that which is the deep truth within you, because that's what God is, the deep love within you. So any problem I have in my life, the ego mind categorizes. Here's relationships, here's health, here's finance and career. And then it just would have us think spirituality is another category. But from the in-depth transformational perspective, spirituality is where you stand within yourself about everything. And to the extent to which I see the filter of unconditional love as my purpose, that my only purpose here is to forgive, to have compassion, and to give of myself and my excellence to the best of my ability in this moment, then by definition, I am allowing to extend through me a harmonizing agent, a harmonizing impulse that will be at work in my relationship with you and all other circumstances which will be attracted to this moment. In any moment that I'm not, then I'm trying to compensate for what I perceive to have been lack in my past, or future, of something I want to happen in the future, that maybe talking to Lisa could get me, or something, anything other than, wow, being here in this moment, then I am deharmonizing. I am out of God. I am out of alignment with the best within me. And instead of bringing forth harmony, I am unfolding, I'm opening the box to chaos. And that's all that's going on in any moment. Now in intimate relationships, love, romance, and so forth, we all know that when we get it right, the best, the most healing, the most transformative, the most joyful, top of the mountain. But most of us also know that when you get that one wrong, great suffering can ensue. So most of us have been to the top of the mountain, and most of us have the scars to show our valley experiences, right? So in that area, I always say I talk about everything I talk about. It's all different, but it's all the same. So the issue is, how do you bring these principles of spiritual consciousness and enlightenment and apply it to the various areas? So if I'm doing a romance seminar, which is what that weekend will be, intimate love, clearing up the past, not bringing shadow figures from the past, forgiveness, compassion, creating a real space for the sacred. What does that have to do with any of this? What's the real masculine feminine dance that's going on? So that's what this weekend is. It's inquiry into that particular area of life, but from the perspective of not seeing your spirituality as separate from sex, love, romance, but where is the alignment?
Do you help people with sex addiction or the neediness of just grabbing anyone? Right now I have a lot of single friends and they have such a laundry list of what they need. He needs to make this much money, or he needs to have this kind of job. He has to do this. He can't have kids, or he should have kids. He needs to be in this age bracket. What do you say about that?
I say that's very unhealthy. If you're going to have a list, it should be what you should be and what you need to be, number one.
Genius,
and
yes.
In terms of what he looks like or brings to it, there's no more powerful prayer than may God's will be done. Because God is love and will is thought. So may God's will be done means may the force that turned embryos into babies, the force that turns an acorn into an oak tree, the force that turns a bud into a blossom, would you take my love life, please? Because clearly you know what to do. This natural intelligence of the universe, which works in a way that is a self-organizing universe that has intention. The universe is intentional. It is intentional for all things to rise to their highest creative possibility, and that means you, and it means your love life. The universe is already on it. Your making a plan like you just wrote interrupts. That actually gets in the way. So the idea is here, God's plan works and yours doesn't.
Right.
And by God, I mean, you can allow the same force that keeps planets revolving around the sun run your life. Or, of course, you could do it yourself. And then in love, as in so many things, you take a brutally honest look and say, how's it going so far? Has it gone well? You're running things? So this business of more running things, love is about giving up control. So how can the answer for getting into it be trying to control it by, I want this, I want this, I want this. So this is a very different path than that. This is surrender to the idea that there is a space of no thing out of which all things emerge, a great cosmic void, and that the universe is self-organizing. You know, you have an egg, you have a sperm, and the next thing you know, all these cells not only emerge, but they know how to collaborate with other cells to form a little liver and a little brain and lungs. I mean, come on, look what nature can do. And nature also has in mind the highest love experience for you, including collaborating with other cells. And that's what love is for. Just like when you and I are here, what is the purpose? The Course in Miracles says something is holy or unholy, depending on the purpose that the mind ascribes to it. So what lifts you and me being here right now is the purpose we have. You want to create something in your career that is the highest level it could be. And I want to create something in my life and career that's the highest level it could be. So you and I join, and then together in collaboration, it can be bigger than we could have been if it was only one of us sitting here.
Yes.
Now, what happens in the body when a cell forgets that it's here to collaborate with other cells and says, I don't want to, I want to just do my own thing for my own purposes? That's called cancer. And that malignancy, that's what is the malaise of human consciousness, is a spiritual malignancy. Everybody going off to do their own thing. And even that list is an example of that. What I want. It's like, it's unfortunate because let's say you want on your list somebody who is very rich and powerful. And let's say you meet that person and then 2 years later he says, I want to give all this up and go to India. No, my picture was that you would be...
You have to stay here and be rich and powerful. What's wrong with you? What do you mean you're donating all your money and giving it all away?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a surrender to love that is not possible within that kind of mental sphere. And that surrender is what allows a space for that which is divine, by whatever name we call that, to emerge and to occur and to grow. And therein lies bliss and joy and excitement.
Absolutely. So within what you just said, bringing in, I know you're very political and you're very well informed, bringing in everything from the Middle East, what's happening right now, into our own personal world, that is really taking on, and it's like hovering over us, a cloud of darkness that it really, people who are watching the news, it's enveloping them with fear. I'm seeing with my clients and, people around me, colleagues, everyone's in a state of fear and just grabbing. I need something now, or I'm hungry for safety and security. Nobody feels secure. How do you address that? And that's part of the reason people are saying, well, I want a rich person. I need a person like this because I don't know if I could do it anymore, because it's seeping into our consciousness that you're next. You know, something bad's going to, and everyone has cancer. Everyone knows somebody who has cancer. You're next. So it's like, I need somebody because I need someone to take care of me or to nourish me or to love me.
That kind of thinking and that kind of fear is inevitable when your life is built on trying to find your good outside yourself. When your primary relationship is with God, with that which is beyond this world, then you are emotionally and psychologically and spiritually grounded in something beyond all that. There's no safety out there. There's no security out there. There's only safety and security in here. The only safety and security is in giving and receiving love. You know, you were telling me earlier, you went into some situations that most people would have said, oh, that could be dangerous, but you were grounded in something within yourself. Life changes, so they say they want something grabbed to be secure. Well, whatever circumstance they think is going to be secure might not be secure tomorrow. I mean, the world changes, and if you live with a place of constantly striving to get something that you think will make you secure, and then if you get it, oh my God, you have to strive to make sure it doesn't go away, that's grasping. That's what the Buddha would talk about as grasping. There is no peace there, and there is no security there. So, once again, the only real problem is the separation from love. Enlightenment is when you shift from body identification to spirit identification. And that means stuff will happen or it won't happen.
Go into that a little more. I love that. Body identification and spiritual identification.
Well, it's from the Course in Miracles, and it says enlightenment is a shift in self-perception from body identification to spirit identification. On the realm of the body, you're not perfect and nobody else is. But on the level of spirit, we all are perfect. On the level of the body, you were born a minute ago and you're going to die somewhat soon, no matter how old you live to be. Whereas on the level of the spirit, birth is not the beginning but a continuation, and death is not an end but a continuation. On the level of the body, it's all about what other people did or what you did or who said what or who did what and who has what and what your resume is and what your successes were and what your failures were and what other people think of you. You know, somebody said to me earlier in a phone call on a radio show I did earlier today, and you hear this a lot. People say, well, I've had a lot of anxiety and depression. My response is, who hasn't? Hello, open your eyes. This is the condition of the world. You know, I think the best advice.
The new normal.
Thank you. And it's not just you. Yeah. I think the best advice anybody can get is get over yourself. It's not just about you. And that's so liberating. And then also I think that that is the healing of this malignancy of all of us thinking, you know, so many people think my suffering is because of this or that. But when you really look, so much of the suffering that we're going through individually is because of larger collective issues. Many of the people you talked about, people getting cancer. Well, hello, it's not just about you. It's also about Monsanto. It's also about the GMOs. It's also about the carcinogens. It's about our environmental policies. It's not just about you. And if you think it's just about you, that's a terrible setup because it's keeping us from acting collectively. A lot of people say, I've been really depressed because I can't find a job. And I'm very financially insecure, so I'm depressed and anxious about that. Well, hello, you haven't been involved collectively in dealing with the fact that for decades we've been siphoning off in this country through banking policies, trade policies, and tax policies, the major wealth of this country into the hands of a very few. So I think that when you were talking about politics, that's why you can't separate politics. But, you know, if we're here to be the light unto the world, that doesn't just mean in the convenient places. And that can't just mean the places that have to do with you personally.
And I get told all the time, I don't watch politics. Don't talk to me about that. It's depressing.
It's negative.
It's negative.
Well, let me tell you what's negative.
What's negative? Yes.
Yeah, what's negative is that complacency.
Yes.
What's negative is that selfishness.
And like you said, it's all tied together.
It also infantilizes people. That means I don't want to be a woman, I just want to be a girl. I don't want to be a man, I just want to be a boy. I mean,
I can't deal with it. I have enough stress in my own life.
It's such an example of where this self-centered, you know, there's a place where spiritual seeking, if it's just about you, becomes just more exercise in narcissism. And it's posing, there's this terrible narcissism that's posing a spirituality these days. The truth of the matter is there is no serious spiritual path that gives any of us a pass on addressing the suffering of other sentient beings. You think you're depressed? Huh, you think you're depressed? Let me take you a few miles from here and show you what some people are going through, given that in the United States of America, we have the second highest child poverty rate of all the advanced nations. You think you're depressed? Let's talk about the fact that African American men have a 1 in 3 lifetime probability of incarceration, and the fact that we have the highest incarceration rate in the world, and the fact that 500,000 of the people we have in our 2.4 million person prison population are there for nonviolent drug offenses. You think, you know, some of these people who, we need to coddle ourselves less, because every one of us, and I think the vast majority of people who are watching your program, won the birth lottery. You know, you were talking about some countries you visited.
And those people don't complain. They're saying, we have each other. How can you be happy? Everyone's depressed in the United States. We have each other.
Yeah.
We get to eat dinner together every night.
That's true. And so as someone who's been in this field from the beginning, sort of, I'm not saying that grief is not important. I'm not saying that burning through our suffering is not important. And I feel very strongly about that. But there's a place where processing becomes self-indulgent, where working through it becomes spewing. And we have to ask ourselves that. And I think, going back to what you were asking before, I think the fact that very early on in my career, I was smack dab in the middle of the AIDS epidemic. I've seen real suffering. I mean, you know, people don't usually come to me because things are going well. You know, people whose children have been murdered, whose family members die of drug overdoses, who full tilt catastrophes happen in their lives. And I think sometimes people lack perspective. Now, some people would say, oh, Marianne, she just says, oh, get over it. And that's not me. But I know in my own life. You know, the other night I had a situation that was, I was going on and on about not getting what I wanted about something. And I opened the Course in Miracles, and it talked about not looking outside yourself or something. And I prayed for help. And I got on my Facebook page, and there was some post from some woman, and I can't remember what the specific was, but it was very difficult. And I see a lot of that in my work, people who have real problems. I mean, real problems. And I got very involved in a conversation with her online, and then I realized when it was done, I felt fine. That so much of my own drama evaporated because darkness can't stand in the presence of light. Self-obsession can't stand in the presence of the divine, which means, by definition, a love for all others, not just you. And so that's where, to me, the political thing comes in. I think that those of us who are involved in personal growth and spiritual seeking, we should be the biggest grown-ups in the room. We should not be the infantile, immature ones who just kind of can't handle a tough topic. Hello? We should be the most responsible for life. We should be the first ones there, saying, but what about the children? What about life? What about the earth? What about compassion? What about forgiveness? Without apology. And the fact that we're just staying over here in this little segment of our own sometimes, because life is hard, I don't have a lot of patience for that. We need real women and we need real men. And those of us who have seen some miracles in our own lives are the miracle workers that are needed in the world today.
Absolutely. And you do talk a lot about miracles. How can one find miracles in their life? I usually sign off emails, expect miracles, and it's like, my life I can't expect miracles in my life, because you don't think you can. Our thoughts are so powerful. Right. When you open yourself up to it, you're going to meet that right person. At a cafe, you're going to see someone. Things are going to happen and connect. Can you talk a little bit about that, and tying that into your relationship workshop that's coming up in February?
Well, the Course in Miracles says a miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. And every thought we think creates form on some level. That's how powerful the mind is. Yes. And every time the heart is open, it creates one trajectory. And when the heart is closed, then we manifest another trajectory. Because everybody's mind is joined, people can subconsciously feel where we're coming from, and so forth. So once you know that, you become less tolerant of your own mind wandering, and you become much more disciplined with your own thinking. Just like you hone your physical muscles through yoga or through physical exercise, you hone your attitudinal muscles. And once you realize that in this quantum field of ultimate reality, there is no place where you stop and I start. It's all one global mind. Then you realize everything I give is given to myself. Everything I withhold is withheld from me. So then generosity and mercy become acts of self-care. You become generous out of self-interest. So it's just going from one mental filter to another mental filter. And depending on your mental filter, you live in this universe,
Yes.
or you live in that universe. And when you ask about romantic love, once again, there are two universes. This relationship is hell. This relationship is heaven. Now, we are brought, from a spiritual perspective, relationships are assignments. And we're brought together with people with whom there's a maximal level of soul growth opportunity. And the way we heal is that your unhealed places are brought into contact with my unhealed places, because that's how they get smoothed out.
Yes.
So sometimes you and I could be, particularly see this in romantic love, oh my God, this is so terrible. But it's like God's going, oh no, this is really good. You're triggered in that place for a reason. You know, Harville Hendricks talks about it as people meeting other people who share, because my childhood wound rubbing up to your childhood wound. The ego would just reenact the trauma and the wound, and both people are left more wounded, and one or both say, well, this is a terrible relationship,
Yes.
I have to go. Or they see the relationship as what it is, a kind of laboratory of possibility, laboratory of the spirit, and a hospital for the soul. When you have that, that's what the Course in Miracles calls a holy relationship, where it is understood that because I love you, because there's this much light, you are going to be subconsciously triggered to show me the worst in you, and I will be subconsciously triggered to show you the worst in me. That does not mean we will not hold each other accountable. That does not mean there will not be healthy boundaries, but there will be a level of commitment to the practice of love, mercy, compassion, forgiveness, and communication that will take a wound and turn it into a miraculous healing. And that's the in-depth inquiry, and that's certainly the inquiry we'll be making that weekend.
Yes, and I think unless you have that mentality, it'll never work. So many people are on, oh, I'm doing It's Just Lunch, I'm doing Matchmaker, I'm doing Millionaire Match, I'm doing Match, but you're still you. You're still having your list. You're still doing this, so none of it'll work.
But you know, I've met people who've had God met people online, and you never know where you're going to meet somebody, so you don't want to have a judgment on that either.
No, you could meet them, but in order to have that,
have it work,
what you're just talking about, you're going in there, soul meeting soul,
right?
Because you'll destroy it. Going, oh, that you have that issue. I don't want to do that. That's pushing my button. So
exactly,
no, you have to. You can do all that, but with like what you're going to teach at your weekend, they're going to learn how to understand themselves, and these are my buttons, and if I meet someone like that, that's okay. I don't have to erase them.
Because if there's a perfect person out there, are they looking for you?
Right.
Really?
Right.
I mean, hello.
Right, exactly.
So it's a very big issue to understand that our seeing each other's darkness is part of what it means to learn to truly love another person.
Yeah, and opening your heart to anybody if you're feeling some sort of connection and exploring it, not dismissing them because one thing's not on their list.
Exactly.
Okay, so with that said, what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, I don't think in those terms of my legacy, but first of all, my real legacy is what I feel I have the profound delight of already, and that's that I have a productive child who's 24 years old, and she's happy and she's productive. And I don't think that there's any achievement any of us could ever have than to feel that we played some part in that. And I wasn't the only one. A lot of people took part in raising her to be such a fine person, and she had a lot to do with it. But certainly, if one were to ask what's my achievement that matters, it's that I have a happy child, and such a productive one, and such a good person, and all of that. That dwarfs everything else for me. I, like any writer, likes to think that somebody reads something in a book that I've written, or hears something in a talk that gives them some aha moment. I mean, that's why we all read books, hoping for that aha. And it makes me really excited to think that you know, when you're writing, and you're in the process of writing your first book, when you're writing, you're by yourself. You have no idea if this paragraph will mean anything to anybody. You have no idea if something you're writing will mean. You don't know if you're ever going to see it as a share graphic, you know? And so then later, like sometimes people will bring me a book to sign, and it's got all this yellow underlining. you know, or underlining in the book, and I always want to open it and like, oh, what part of it did you? Yes, exactly. And that makes any writer just feel really happy. So anything later, if I've stopped working or if after I've passed from this earth, my hope would be what it is now, is that something I might have said or done brings comfort to someone.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's really lovely meeting you.
Really great meeting you too. Thank you.